for the screen to come up here. Great. Great. Wonderful. Well, this is exciting. This is something we've been working towards and something that we're excited to share with the city of Indianola. It's not. But with that said, we want to create expectations and clearly establish expectations that we have. We're really kind of showing the vision of the community over the very long term. And several of these projects will take time to develop. It'll require a lot of community involvement in those the development of these, and several votes along the way with residents establishing whether they want us to go in this direction or not. But for the purposes of this evening, what's on the agenda is the property acquisition of 118 East Salem. And give some disclaimers, because you can't have a good presentation without just having plenty of legal disclaimers. This is just a conceptual idea. This is not professionally rendered in any way by an architect. This is the very initial stages of us sharing this vision with our community. No timelines established at this point, other than the action that's on the agenda this evening for the council to consider. We will need additional support from the community in order to construct a new public safety building in City Hall at some point. None of these ideas are set in stone. We're very open-minded in seeking community engagement throughout this entire process to ensure that we are meeting the expectations of the residents. And this process or project, or these series of projects, will take proceed. So with that said, prior to my time coming in with the city of Indianola, a process had been begun to meet the community's needs when it came to the facilities that our community really needs for today and for the future, to take care of our needs, our library, our city hall facilities, and for our community to continue to grow. We also look to have community gathering spaces. And yet, the analysis that was completed for the projects that you see before you was completed during COVID. So the community engagement process was somewhat limited, and so some of the renderings and whatnot really don't, I think, what the intent of our council and our public was really looking for. We also were looking at things that could be impactful to the neighborhood. Yet the renderings was only a very small sliver, and I want to make that very clear that the majority of the cost that went into the initial design was really needs analysis and what our community needs going forward, and how much office space is required, and how much space for our fire department and police department and all that other things. So those were dollars well spent, and it really has helped lead us to where we are today. I think the meeting before I came was a little bit of a opportunity for the council to express their feelings and let the air be cleared a little bit, and
Nice way to say it. You're so positive.
in order to get rid of the smog, you need, or what we call an inversion, you need a good storm. A good storm blows away the inversion, right? And the council's been getting along better than I've been. So this is
Now.
Ultimately, one of the concerns that really came up during that time was that this is actually was envisioned as one project, but it really had to be two projects pursuant to state code, because of the fact that they were on two different parcels, and therefore would require two different votes. This caused some concern. Obviously, this was voted up 3 for the public safety building, and down 3 for the public safety building, and up 3 for the library, and down 3 for the library. And it really had it was indicative of the fact that we all needed to take the opportunity to have a pause and to address what the concerns of the community really were, so that we could all get on board. You know, having a divergence of thought is not a bad thing. It helps us to make better decisions. And this was truly illustrated tonight, as we had a lot of really great debate, a lot of 4-1 votes going back and forth, and that's healthy. That helps us to make better choices. Some of the concerns that were expressed by the community is the city hall location. By having the city hall proposed to be in the library, it felt very impactful to the neighborhood, the residential neighborhood right there, especially with the limited land that was available. bringing City Hall back into the public safety building seemed the more logical way to keep it in the downtown area. The other great concern that I've heard over and over again since I've been hired on is that we are limiting parking where we need more parking for our businesses and more green space. With the new County Justice Center, a lot of the green space and the trees were lost that were once there. The other message we heard loud and clear is that the architecture of a new city facility really should match the architecture of our community. And the modern looks of buildings that were proposed really did not fit with the architecture of our area. We also wanted to make sure that the costs were appropriate. We wanted to make sure that if we needed to do things, we could phase it. Myself coming in from a different state, I was a little concerned that it didn't have a basement. I thought that basement in tornado country was probably a very healthy thing as far as emergency operations center in a public safety building. And then, of course, we wanted to make sure that all of our council was represented and that their constituents were represented by having both the old council and the new council members all really on the same page. So we took a pause, a step back to really talk about what could we do a little bit differently, meet the needs of our community and downtown business district. And so this is just an overhead view of the existing City Hall property. You can see that our house here a little bit. You can see that we have some beautiful green space here. I think our Parks and Recreation Department does an exceptional job making this beautiful. We have the Tree of Life out here. We have parking that's close to Jefferson. But on my very first day during my interview, I was waiting in between sessions for my wife to come back and pick me up. And I spent a goodly amount of time sitting here watching no one utilize this park ever. And it's really because it's so close to Jefferson. It's really loud. And even though it's beautiful and it's a great landscaping feature, it really wasn't usable for parents who might want to have their kids out there or anything like that. Our City Hall is right here. Of course, our square is over here, and the County Justice Center is just outside of that configuration. And the real question is, how do we bring some of that green space and that parking closer to the square? Some of the objectives, the key objectives we really want to try to accomplish in this process is keep the public safety building downtown. That creates vibrancy. From our staff perspective, we go over, we get lunch, and we solicit the businesses in town. Having a downtown presence for our City Hall is really important. We also needed to find temporary locations of office space for our city personnel. When we start constructing a new City Hall, we have to dismantle parts of these buildings, and we need to have a place for our city staff to go, at least part of that. The vision is that our fire department would be able to stay while we build a fire department in this area, but the rest of the city staff may need to relocate. We wanted to make sure that we move City Hall from the proposed library into the public safety building. We wanted to relocate the parking, the green space closer to the square, and have a net positive in parking for the square itself. We wanted to preserve the historic look and feel of our community by having a historic architecture for our building. We wanted to enhance the downtown development. And so it became very apparent that we wanted to move that space closer to the west. And that really opened up the idea and the thought process of potentially acquiring more property so that we could reconfigure City Hall a little bit differently. That started with the discussion of the parking lot itself that the city currently has under lease. And that quickly evolved into the discussion with the same property owner that owns the Regions Bank building, which is also occupied by Optima and arguably it's the least aesthetically pleasing things on the square. Is that a politically correct way to say that? These are the ones that don't necessarily match the architecture of the rest of the square. It has that 60s and 70s look about it. And it's clear that those buildings are a little bit of disrepair. And yet they are usable, something that the city could utilize for some of the space that we've already talked about. So additional land provides a lot of answers to the city. And it's important to note that I've already had discussions with all three of the tenants there and had a very warm reception by all three and very open to the idea of working with the city to potentially relocate time. So what does this property really mean for the city? What it means is that we would have a location for our temporary city hall and potentially our police department that could relocate to this area during the period of construction on the new city facility. There's also the discussion of what is the potential of this property over the long term? What is the after construction opportunities for the use of green space and additional parking that can be brought to the square? Of course, those are two separate projects. We want to make that very clear. It's two different considerations by our community as we move forward. And the second consideration could not be entertained until after the first consideration is complete, meaning construction on a new city hall, public safety building is done. So 5 to 7 years from now, it could be the potential of this property. And how could it benefit our downtown community? One of the fundamental aspects of any good community is to have a healthy and vibrant downtown. This is what's called a three-dimensional map of the Des Moines area. And it shows the vibrancy and the per square foot benefit of taxes that are generated within a downtown area and how those taxes can be utilized to help benefit the rest of the county and the rest of the region. A little video on that.
I'm Nick Hosey, and I'm the director of Urban 3 based in Nashville, North Carolina. We help cities look at land use, urban design, and economics so they can see how they're doing financially and what they can be doing better. But we consistently find that municipalities and their counties perform better when they invest their dollars in urban mixed-use development instead of other forms. Think of a company that consumes raw material, adds some labor and know-how, creates a product. This company will need to know the cost of their materials, their labor, revenue, and the ultimate market value of the product in order to see whether they would be successful or not. Cities are actually quite similar. Their raw material is a finite resource, the land within their borders, and their product is their tax base, which is what they need to survive. We've looked at cities all over the country, and when you do the math, it's easy to see that dense downtown development returns a greater investment to the community than putting tax dollars. Let's look at some examples. My house sits on 1/10 of an acre lot. Our municipal property taxes are about $1,100 or about $11,000 an acre. This big box retailer sits on a 34-acre lot. Total property taxes are a whopping $221,000 a year, which equates to about $6,500 an acre net to the city. Taking the city's portion of property taxes and adding the estimated retail taxes, it equals $54,000 in total tax production per acre. That seems like a lot until we compare it to a building downtown. This boarded up department store was converted into a mixed-use building site that includes retail, office, and residential space. So where does this mixed-use building come in? The city nets a considerable $330,000 property taxes per acre. Add to it the estimated $83,000 in retail taxes per acre, which brings the total to the city to $413,000 per acre. That's more than 7.5 times the productivity of the site. Even looking at jobs, the big box store produces about 6 jobs per acre, while our mixed-use building comes in at 74 jobs per acre. And let's not forget, the downtown building also contains 90 residential units per acre. Those residents are working and shopping and creating additional economic activity. The big box store has 0 residential units. But remember, most companies need to count more than raw material costs. They also need to account for the labor, management, and know-how. This is the investment they make in turning raw materials into finished product. Cities are the same. In order to turn land into tax base, they have to add a special something called infrastructure. At a minimum, cities add value to their land by providing streets, utility service, police protection, fire protection. The more spread out a city becomes, the more expensive it is to deliver those services, especially when that acre of land pays less per acre. Unfortunately, when cities consider new developments, too often they focus on taxes that they hope will flow to the city coffers without adequately considering the land base they will use up or the costs they will incur. In city after city, big and small, when we do the math, that dense downtown development is much more productive than anything else in the community. Downtown development is the golden goose of urban economics, and it's the best bet for cities that will prosper in development.
So ultimately, this is that same tax map for the city of Des Moines. You can see how it has grown over time as more and more investment has come into the Des Moines metro area. And it's really important to note that what's good for the city is actually extremely good for the county. As we look at lost dollars, those lost dollars not only come to the city, they come to the county. We look at property taxes, those property tax dollars come not only to the city, they come to the county. And those county dollars can be used throughout the entire county area when it comes to taking care of roads or providing essential services out to the county as well. So it's really incumbent upon municipalities and governments to work together to try to create that vibrancy in our community. And that's really, really comes down to how do we create a vibrant downtown or enhance the business district we already have. And this idea of a downtown green space really came from what's called the Green, a simple, small little park that's right outside the Charlotte, North Carolina Convention Center. I went to a ICMA City Managers Conference down there. And this was the little park that was right outside the convention center and led to the hotel area. It's just a simple little park that had a theme on reading and had poems and books and little sculptures and art creation throughout it. But it just created a great place to have an ice cream cone, grab a cup of coffee or whatever it is that you would enjoy in a downtown area. And that's really what we've lost on the square. How do we restore that to the square? This is the question that we really have. What is the possibilities of this land in the future? And how could that potentially be redeveloped into a more green area or additional parking? And ultimately, what we really want to do is create a community gathering space, a place for people to come together, a place for people to call home. And that is really what is done. That type of an element to it can be enhanced with public art, murals like we have in our community today, and also be turned into a green space. So one of the thought processes is that we relocate the Tree of Life that's closer to Jefferson Way and bring it out closer to the square, that we open up a green area. And ironically, the County Justice Center, when it was built, had the steps located right there facing to the east, which was designed such that it could be used for concerts and venues, except there's really no location out here other than the street to enjoy those. And so you need to shut down the street every time. This would lend itself to being a beautiful green space area that leads from the new city hall to the county justice building and tying the two together. Also, it enhanced the parking. Again, this is just me playing with PowerPoint and what it could mean as far as green space is concerned. Adding to that, of course, we are utilizing the Justice Center now. We are utilizing it for the Christmas program that we had not too long ago. And it was beautiful. It was great to see everybody come out. It was great to see the carolers and great to see that venue being used. It's something that could be that could enhance our community even more. Another aspect is, or a different possibility and option too, is to potentially build an atrium. And that's what you really see in cities like Boston or others, where you have kind of almost like a glass pavilion where the sides can be opened up in the summer and you can cover the top in the summer and have a shaded area away from the sun. But in the winter months, you can open up and remove the shades from the top, seal up the sides, and have almost a greenhouse effect and a nice warm place to enjoy, again, your ice cream cone or a cup of coffee or whatever have you. It ties the two facilities together. But you can see here, I have, this is very visionary. This is very far out. Again, something that would need to be considered by both the city as well as the county as well. And that is the potential of having additional parking space in this area. How would you accomplish that? You don't necessarily want to build a parking structure that blocks or inhibits or comes up to the square. You don't want to hide the square behind any kind of parking structure, but you could potentially go down, thereby having the green space that draws you into the square, but having additional net positive parking in the square. Of course, that second option with the pavilion is just kind of illustrated there as well. So what could an underground parking facility look like? A simple in, simple out, one way angled parking so that you could maximize the parking spots and not make it difficult to pull in and pull out. With a simple counter of the number of spaces available. This could be designated for city and county employees and provide a solution to the number of county employees that are currently parking on the square, as well as provide benefit for our new facility as well, and to taking care of our own staff. But we also believe that this type of a structure would be heavily utilized by our seniors in the winter for sure, when they're visiting the restaurants in the area, get their car out of the sun, get their car out of the snow. Be a very beneficial area. But again, that is the visionary aspect. What does that really do for us in the short term? Short term, we have to focus on the primary objective, which is to meet our public safety needs by providing space for our firefighters, for our police officers, and for our city staff to operate. What we're really seeing here with the potential city hall is pushing city hall closer to Jefferson. We really don't absolutely need parking closer to Jefferson. And that's mostly because we have the benefit of IMU. IMU is our utility service provider, and when they're paying their bills, they go to IMU. They don't necessarily come into City Hall. Meetings. And those who come for community development purposes or for their public safety needs. And so we can limit parking out here, put City Hall further to the east, and provide the spots, the space that we need for a public safety facility. I've kind of reconfigured this a little bit from what the council has seen previously, but basically this is the size of the Norwalk Fire Department right here. I wanted to kind of plop that in just so you could see. One of the concerns of our firefighters is that they currently have to back in their fire trucks every single time, and that's hazardous not only to the building, but to the equipment that we have. And one of the concerns of our firefighters, they want to be able to pull in back and in emergency situations, pull out and have immediate access. When you're looking at this, the green space and whatnot, I probably should have talked about the colored A's there are really public art. Different opportunities for public art can be put in all the way throughout here as well. And then the greenery as far as trees are concerned. So this is the first floor, the main floor of the facility, and provides for administration for our fire department as well as the apparatus, and administration for the police department as well as foyer space with conference room space for our residents and our business owners to be able to tap into and utilize. This envisions having a basement, which is really important in Iowa. And that is where our police officers can have underground parking for their vehicles. They can bring in those who they want to interview in interrogation rooms down there. They can have their evidence storage, a small gun range, so that they can be fully trained. And then several training rooms in addition to an emergency operations center. We need larger spaces for our entire departments to come together, both our fire and our police, and they do need to be separate because they do have different things going on at the exact same time. But then our police department needs separate training rooms so that they can throw each other on the floor that bounce back up so that they can take on the grannies next year. This also envisions an upper floor to a city hall that would allow for space for the council to meet, conference room for the mayor and council, as well as space for our community development and administrative departments. Ultimately, we want to make sure that a future city hall would have that look and feel of the city of Indianola. Therefore, we would want to have brick and limestone architecture that matches Simpson College, matches the county administration building, Methodist Church, and all the areas that of our community really tie in the look and feel. Not only the brick and limestone architecture, but the window treatments that we have that's so unique to the Indianola Square. I threw up there the Carnegie Library, which is now the Opera House, because in all reality, the Carnegie Library is the perfect balance between the traditional in the front and the modern in the back. And that's really what we're looking at here today, with a traditional city hall in the front and a modern county justice center in the back, tied together by the greenery and green space and the art too. And this is just kind of my best attempt at trying to render something in PowerPoint with limited skill set before this potentially gets handed off to architects to do a more professional job. And on this little bit of a structure, not only does it envision the basement upper floor, but typically your city halls have some kind of a dome. I had several different domes that I put up there that looked kind of different shape and look and whatnot. Somebody had suggested to me, you ought to make our dome look like our hot air balloon rising. So that was just my attempt to try to make a hot air balloon rising. Somebody else took that idea and said, you ought to make that element really come through City Hall and have your foyer be look like the interior of a hot air balloon as well. That could lead to really being inviting atmosphere for the public to come in those front doors, to be able to see interpretive signs and information about the Opera House, about the National Balloon Classic, about Simpson College and the Warren County Fair and all the different great things that we have to offer, and leads right into the green space and then to the square and invites everybody to come to shop. So we're really looking at 3 different projects. Pressing, the one we're really focusing on tonight is the acquisition of land in support of the public safety building. But we also are working on acquisition of land for the expansion of our library as well. We have acquired one home and we're in negotiations on another. And then our long term is the future and green space of the parking. Again, I want to come back and set expectations. This isn't going to happen overnight. This is going to be a very long-term vision and require a lot of support. I want to do it in a cost-controlled and phased approach. When I came to Iowa, one of the things that was strange for me is the concept and the idea of coming to the community and saying, okay, here's a vision, give us money, and then we'll hopefully you get what you're asking for, as opposed to the mindset of where I came from, which is you buy the land first, you work on the design, you get to the design so that the community then can see the rendering, really know what they're paying for. And when they go to the ballot box, they can vote and have confidence that they're going to get what they are purchasing with their vote. That's really what's before the council tonight. It's the very first of many dominoes that need to fall. That is the land acquisition. We've been working on this probably 9 months now, working on the acquisition of this land and dealing with the current property owner and their family, and they've been nothing but wonderful and gracious to work with. But this land acquisition is step one. We also need to then open up the opportunity for community engagement, to have conceptual and design, to bring contractors on board through that conceptual design process, eventually have voter approval, get full design, and then relocate staff and have construction. That's just the public safety building portion. Working years ahead. But what's up before the council tonight for their consideration, I want you to not really have the big picture of why the direction they are, is 4 steps. The first one is a reimbursement resolution. It's envisioned that the council is actually borrowing money from on the land acquisition. That becomes a little bit difficult. You know, Andy's done a little bit more gray with me asking to try to make all this work, and I appreciate Andy and Jackie and all the staff trying to come together. But this is envisioning that we're borrowing money from ourselves to make this acquisition. That we have a funding allocation resolution so that we can free up some of those dollars. 6C is the actual agreement, the purchase agreement that's finally been negotiated and before the council for their consideration. And then the council has the opportunity to discuss and give direction with regard to conceptual design and how we want to. Council, public, have any questions?
I think this is really exciting. Put a lot of work into this. Nice.
I think our Microsoft skills crap out of mine.
Just wait until Jason looks at other opportunities.
All right, if no other questions, we will move on to item A. I need a first and second motion on a resolution declaring an official intent under the Treasury Regulation 1.15-2, I vote -2, to issue debt to reimburse the city for certain original expenditures paid in connection with specific projects and repayment of original funds borrowed. Okay.
Second.
You, any other discussion?
Just have one thing, Christine had to leave for an emergency, so.
Okay. Jackie?
Councilmember Parker,
Aye.
Dalby,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Item B, I need a first and second motion on a resolution authorizing transfer of surplus funds from the Indianola Stormwater Utility Fund to the Indianola Real Property Improvement Fund.
Moved.
Second. Thank you. Any other discussion? Jackie?
Councilmember Schroeder,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Dalby.
Aye.
Item C, I need a first and second motion on a resolution approving a purchase agreement.
So moved.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Councilmember Parker,
Aye.
Selby,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Item D, discussion and direction regarding architectural services. Ben, do you have an opinion on this or an idea, thought?
That's really it. Other than our previous renderings of the work that have been done with a combination between OPN, who is our architect, and Formation Group, who is our advocate for our architect, representing the city to the architect. They have done a great job in the work that they did to do our needs analysis, and they very well could do a great job taking this new vision. That I think what we're really doing right now is trying to become a better customer, trying to create the vision to give to them to be able to do the work. So we could continue to go in the direction that we have and historically in the past, or we can, since it is such a brand new and fresh look at how we want to move forward, we could go through an RFQ process for qualifications and open that up to architects that perhaps are following a methodology that we've looked at as a council and as a staff, which is the construction manager at risk. Being able to look at new opportunities to try to establish a budget and live within that budget a little bit differently under that new methodology allowed by the. So it's really an opportunity for you to set direction for us and how we should proceed with the next steps.
Having spent much time in this industry and working with architects, I would tell you OPN is one of the best. I mean, we were really happy to have had them bid on that and or provide a RFQ before. I would tell you that probably any of the architecture firms in the Des Moines metro area are all doing the new, with the opportunity to be able to do it that way. And I know OPN does as well. So my recommendation would be that we continue on with what OPN. They basically were going with the direction that really is council at the time we're giving them. So yes, I don't have any qualms about what their qualifications are and their abilities. Because like I said, I've worked on a number of projects that they design really nice buildings. So I have full faith that they'd be. That's one of them right there. I mean, they've been in, and I think they've done some stuff with our schools, and I worked with them. I believe Pleasant Hills new public safety building was
I
done.
think it makes sense too, because they've done some work. Assessment.
Our staff,
They know what our needs are.
Do we need to keep those on?
I wouldn't think so. I mean, I mean, Formation kind of they were the initial contact for the needs assessment. And then at that point, then we're brought the architects in at that point. So
The only play devil's advocate here for a minute and not listen. I worked with OPN and Envision and Sorry Battery and FEPA and everybody in the city of Des Moines with different projects. BNIM and everybody, but I just, sometimes you get a vision by what the concept was. The one thing, John, I don't disagree with you, they've done great work, so don't get me wrong, but when we were down here in that meeting, they just kind of kept shifting their design around, and I don't think they've had a vision, but you're so correct. We really haven't been good partners in telling them really what we want. And so that's really something that I think we have to do as owners. We have to tell them what we want and what it has to look like and what we think this should happen. And it's not something that they can pull out of their great design. And this is going to be our marquee project. It's going to be a marquee project, but it's going to be based on our design, not their concept. So if we can go that direction, I guess I don't have any problem either. Only thing is would like to get some information on maybe you guys had this, John, I don't know, and Glenn, but maybe more information on how they would then work with us. And we kind of had a little bit of that, but how they'd work with us to get the public sold on a bond issue.
yeah, and they had all that. I mean, we were just gearing up for that whole part of it. And I would say to be fair to them, be honest with you, the way way we were working on our process was more to plan the needs assessment, the whole design was nothing more than, here's the spaces that we need. And it was really more of a, let's get it taken care of, get it moving forward, then we'll come back to the public with what our concepts of the full design would be. So to hold that against them, I think would be wrong, because that wasn't there. Those weren't even, in my opinion, those weren't even concepts of the direction we were going. It was, this is what could be, because we had to show the public something wasn't the final product. We had
And I get that.
there yet.
I'm with you on that too. I guess I would also like to know also, have they worked at all with the construction manager at risk? And that's a fairly new concept. And I really,
I would say yes.
yeah, I guess I'd just like to know that for sure. We're gonna try to make it, I don't, are we making a decision tonight on what direction we're
You're
going?
just providing general direction. I can certainly.
But ask that question of them.
Yeah. I can certainly go to OPN and say, we'd like to revise, have you give us a new proposal. Starting work that you've done before, taking this new vision and give us an estimate on the pre-built expenditure and the post full design costs.
Right.
And whether or not, and to share their experience with regard to seeing their construction manager.
I think the construction manager at risk, and this is what the public needs to know though, with construction manager at risk, you will be at a guaranteed maximum. There will not be money spent over that. And so we need to have an architect that's gonna be able to work with.
So we choose to spend money over that.
Well,
I mean, that's
exactly.
what it comes back to. There comes up things along the way. Generally, you're engineering down, that's the whole idea.
Yeah, you have three, that's for project, time, cost, and scope, and it's a scope that's flexible unless you want to add money to it to increase the scope.
And please, Steve brought it up. He's asked them about what their plan was for how we were gonna mark. I mean, they had a full blown, I mean, they're very good at that. They'll work with you, hand in hand to get it through as far as the marketing and the sales pitch to the community.
Well, I know they've done a lot of school projects and that's, they've helped schools do that too. I have no doubt about that. I just want to make sure that I had that plan, and I know you did.
Yeah, we did.
But I also want to ask a question about construction management.
We can certainly invite them into a council meeting too.
Well, I also want to say, I think it's extremely important for the department heads and yourself to be comfortable with this, because you're the ones that are sitting in all those meetings and working on the day to day. So we want to make sure you guys are comfortable as well too.
I actually, Gia, and I'm saying the right one this time. Staff, so that we can start sitting down with each, I've already had the opportunity to sit down with the police officers already because we were going through the hiring process, but now to sit down with firefighters and really get their vision and it's some excitement about this. And I think that's going to be great for recruitment and great for, what bodes well for our community.
All right. We will move on to other business, unless there's any other comments on that. All right. City managers report.
Make it really quick, because I know it's been a long night, but I just want to say that there's been a ton of meetings going on with YMCA and the conversion of the city resource and city facility. Certainly want to express my appreciation to the staff for all of their work in making that come to fruition. Each one of the departments have been meeting with Heather, and Heather's just been phenomenal in making that go as smoothly as possible. But not only that, our staff is busy. We're doing exceptionally good with our police department and community engagement that we've been doing. Our fire department got a great response this week, even though they were stretched thin. And for our resources were out of town, they still responded for the fire needs for our community. Our community development department, all the different projects that are coming on and streets and sewer. I think one of our departments is actually working at top capacity right now with all of the different projects. And that really can't go on without saying our Parks and Recreation department, which is really coming up full speed with all the different events and venues and everything that they do and the beautiful flowers that they provide for our entire community. So thanks to all of them and thanks to our volunteers out there. That's
I would add the library would be.
and the library, absolutely.
She's got some great things coming up with some of the great programs scheduled.
The kickoff on the event was approved by the council tonight.